Hello, everyone. Just wanted to say some brief things about the idea of week four of the class. This is really the most important week, I would say. It's the fulcrum of the class. What have we done so far? We have a very brief introduction to Kantian and utilitarian ethical decision making frameworks. We looked at a couple of, I would say, quite interesting and challenging issues in computer ethics. And the idea was that we would kind of look at those issues, ethics of autopilot and the ethics of the Facebook experiment, with Kantianism and utilitarianism in mind. And part of it was seeing whether we could come to some sort of ethical resolution of those issues using one or other of those decision-making frameworks. When we come to week four, we have a new question, and that is really Jonas's question, which is whether traditional ethics like utilitarianism, Kantianism, and of course, in his mind, all ethical approaches, religious, secular, philosophical, otherwise, whether any of them are adequate, useful, really, for dealing with the kind of issues that modern technology, including computer technology, challenges us with. That is the Jonas thesis. This is really the big idea of the course. Is the Jonas, what I'm calling the Jonas thesis, which is the general thesis that the power of technology has grown to the point where, because of the global and permanent, or at least for all intents and purposes, permanent effects of some of our technologies, that we have reached a point where previous ethical frameworks are obsolete. We're in a completely new position. Jonas did not specifically have computer or digital technology in mind, but that was one of the things he certainly had in mind. He had all sorts of things in mind, especially nuclear weapons and nuclear power. But this really is the question of the course, and that is whether digital technology has grown in its both its power and its ubiquity in life to the point where we no longer have the ethical resources to really deal with it. It's a question. It's not taken for granted that Jonas's thesis is necessarily true, but it's trying out that thesis. And so one of the things to do is to look back on things like autopilot and the Facebook experiment and ask ourselves whether Kantianism and utilitarianism were really adequate to deal with those things. And then looking forward to especially the question of the singularity, the ethics of the so-called singularity, whether that really does vindicate Jonas's thesis, that is, that we've entered such a new territory because of the growth and power of technology, in this case, digital technology, that we really don't know how to deal with it ethically because it breaks the boundaries of our previous ethics. And he gives very plausible argument for what the limitations were of previous ethics and how those limitations might turn out to be inadequate to our new situation. So really, this week four really is the fulcrum of the course. It's what makes us rethink where we've been in the last 3 weeks, and it gives us a totally new perspective on what or it influences how we will be seeing the issues that we look at later on. And the issues that we look at, the singularity, digital surveillance, and the idea of interveillance, are all chosen as being particularly apt to the Jonas thesis. That is, it does seem that these issues, even more than the ones we've looked at so far, do seem to test the boundaries of our traditional ethical approaches.